Hey, welcome to Excel in Retirement Podcast, where we help good people make wise financial decisions so they can excel in retirement. Your guide is David Treese, a financial advisor who generously shares his expertise so you can have peace of mind about your finances today and a plan in place for your future. I'm your host, Andy Traub, and today David's going to help us understand why staying calm during market volatility isn't just a suggestion, it's a requirement if you want to have a faithful legacy that involves being involved with the market. David, thanks for being here today. And when I talk about or bring up the topic of market volatility, what are some things that come to mind from you, sort of historically or in your own personal experience?
Yeah, it's always there. If it's not there, it was just there. And a lot of times people get market volatility seared into their consciousness, and they're making decisions. I think we've talked about this before. They're making decisions today based on information that was a little bit dated. And I think it's just the way that the news trickles out a lot of times. But we want to prepare for volatility and those market swings up and down and so forth beforehand so that we're not reactive. Anytime you're playing a game, and not that investing is a game, but anytime you're playing a game, you want to be on the offensive as much as possible and not reacting to a fast break or some kind of sudden surge. And so just being proactive beforehand, I think, is a huge key.
Can you think of a time specifically, maybe it was a day, maybe it was a week in your career where you experienced massive market volatility? It happened within a 48 hours, 72-hour swing. It was like, bam.
I think the thing that is most recent like that was the COVID year, when the market, we were just hearing those reports coming out about thinking it was pretty scary. I don't know if you recall back in the spring of 2020, and the market just dipped really, really quickly, and financial institutions were worried about that, and there was a lot of fear in the markets, and it dipped, and then it sprung right back up and finished the year up, which was really surprising at the time.
Yeah, and the hard part, I think, when that volatility happens, is it's like those machines. You ever played those machines at the arcade, and they have all those quarters stacked up, and you add a quarter, and then it sort of like adds to the pile, and it's like it'll drip a little, but then it'll just all fall, right? Like market volatility is not like, oh, we went up 10 and down 12. It's like it starts to go, and then it starts to really pick up steam, right?
Right.
And that's when people go, uh-oh, I kind of heard a rumble in the distance, and then I realized like the tidal wave was upon me, right?
Yeah.
And that can happen. I think what's interesting is now we can watch it literally happen in real time.
Right.
Right. And we're going to talk about that, the good and the bad of that happening.
Yes. Generally, that's the way it happens. You're right. You kind of see it stair-stepping down. Like in 2022, as the government raised interest rates, the market just kind of stair-stepped down. It wasn't like after 9/11 where the market just dropped like a rock, and some people call that black swan events, where we didn't see that coming. But oftentimes we see that, and we can adjust if needed, or just hold the course.
Well, I'm glad you brought up 9/11, because I think that's another one where could anybody be really prepared for that, or how well prepared were people for that? I mean, it always seems impossible until it happens, right?
Yes.
And so we certainly don't ever wish for anything like that to happen. But if there's anything we do know about the stock market, it's that it goes up and it goes down.
Yes.
And if that is true, and it is, it's like the sun. What do you know about the sun? It goes up and goes down, right? Then you can build in preparation for that, but it's still hard. It's still hard to see the down. So I want to talk about first, the first part of this is that you believe that you have to understand, if you're going to invest in the stock market, that market turmoil is part of the plan, right?
Yeah, for sure. And we have to be cognizant of our outlook and like how far out we're planning, and we can invest more liberally, I would say, and try to have higher returns, generally speaking, if we can stomach that, if we're farther away from using our money, if we have a longer time horizon. Where it becomes more challenging for folks is as we get closer to retirement. we could throw stuff in an S&P 500 fund and just let it sit there, and we may be okay if we have 10, 20, 30 years. But when we're close to potentially using that money, and we're generally pretty close to using that if we're at that retirement age. I mean, there's always the possibility when we're in retirement that we're going to use our savings because we don't have regular paychecks coming in from employment. And so we want to be positioned well for that. And I talked a little bit in my newsletter that's coming out this week about this and how we want to make those transitions as we get within 5 years of retirement.
Yeah, and again, there's so much wisdom to be pulled from Scripture. I mean, Scripture talks a lot about money,
Right.
a lot about money.
Thousands sometimes.
Yeah, and it's not always like give money to the church. Like that's a lot from a negative perspective. Like, yeah, it talks about money. It talks about give us more, but it's not. One of them verses is it's Luke 24. For which of you intending to build a tower does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to finish it. I think that the challenge is thinking about, hey, this is part of the plan. This is literally, I'm going to build in that the fact over the feeling that, it's almost like, I don't know, are you a roller coaster guy? You've been on roller coasters before?
I did growing up. It's been a long time. We had Carowinds here close by, a couple hours away. That was where we would go.
I've only been on a couple.
Yeah.
But, and it's kind of funny because you look at it and you're like, all right, I'm going to go up and I'm going to go down. But then you get on it and you're like, okay, looking at going up and going is very different than actually going up and going down.
Right.
And I think that's really the stock market is like people go, yeah, I know it goes up and down. But when it's your money and you're watching that thing go up and down, it's harder, right?
Yes.
But it's having an advisor who is going to say, hey, here's the facts. I know how you're feeling, but here's the facts. And again, the facts are not projecting what's going to happen in the future. The fact is, historically, this is what's happened in the market. It's gone up, it's gone down, right? But I also know that you teach your customers that, this is, we have to remember we're managers, right? That we don't own it. We are managing what is ours, right? And so that also becomes a realization that, you know what, go up or go down, like I'm just here to manage it, but you don't necessarily own it. So let me ask you this. When you get a call from someone who's panicked, what do you generally talk to them about?
Yeah, we on the manager part and considering the cost beforehand, and I'll circle back to that in just a second, your question, Andy. To be a good manager, we have to have a way to draw income from our accounts. And if we're just depending on the stock market to do that, we really are going to be challenged. And I often tell folks that Warren Buffett said in his 1996 shareholders letter that he released that if we're going to be in the market we shouldn't be in the market for 10 minutes if we're not going to be in it for 10 years. And so he was certainly advocating for being a long-term investor. And when we're in our 40s like we are, we can do that. But when we're closer to using that, we have to have a way to generate income. So being a good manager and managing our resources well is having an income plan for how we're going to take income away when we need that. And so for our clients, we always know where we can get income from over the next 10 years if they followed our guidance and so forth. And so that's what we do. To your question, though, we're downside focused first in our approach because most all of our clients are over 55 years old, with most of them being...
Tell me really specifically what that means. I mean, define downside focused and what an alternative to that might be.
As an umpire, you will resonate with this analogy. When we're in our 40s, we're trying to hit home runs. We're trying to swing for the fences and get the highest return we can, generally speaking, if our risk tolerance allows for that. But when we're within 5 years of retirement or we're in retirement, we advocate for switching to that income and distribution stance where we're just trying to get on base. You know better than anybody probably that it's a lot easier to get on base than it is to hit a home run. And so if we're just trying to hit those ground balls and get on base, we can more successfully oftentimes do that rather than just trying to hit those home runs and go for those big returns. And so when we set someone's accounts up and their financial plan up, we are focused on the downside risk that they have so that they can be prepared for when that volatility happens. So to your question about what happens when people call us, we get very few calls when the market is going down 20% or so, because we have prepared our clients for that in advance. We do get some calls, but it's not like the majority of our people are calling us because we've already had a conversation at the outset about how we're going to react to this. It's just like the coach in basketball. He's going into the huddle, into the timeout huddle, and he's trying to coach the people, on the players, on what to anticipate so that when this happens, they know how to react. And so that's what we want to do. We want to have a coaching type relationship with folks where we plan beforehand so that we don't have to be stressed out. That's the whole goal. We don't want to be stressed out. And I see pictures of in the past when the market has gone down a good bit, and an advisor will post a picture on social media of ordering pizza in and they're working late because they're fielding all these calls. And so we don't have that kind of traumatic experience, Lord willing, hopefully, most of the time. I never have in my career. And I guess it really just goes back to the way that you were come up in the business and learning the business from my dad. One thing that really stuck with me that he said is, David, you never want to have to avoid your clients. And I might have told you this before, Andy, but he's like, when you see them at the grocery store, you don't want to have to go to the other aisle because you lost their money or something's not going right with their accounts. You always want to be able to enthusiastically greet your clients when you see them at a restaurant or wherever. And so that's always been our approach. And so we are, if we can do anything to help it, never going to be in an awkward situation where I have to avoid seeing someone. I wouldn't do that anyway, but we wouldn't want to. We don't want to ever be in a position where we would want to try to avoid someone rather than seeing them, no matter what the market conditions are. Does that make sense, or did that?
It does. And I think that what it made me think of is, I think it was an episode or two ago that we talked about having a balance of growth and then fixed.
Yes.
And so there are things you can do in your plan. I think about certain things. I think this analogy will land. We have some pretty bad storms. I live just south of Nashville, and we get some kind of nasty storms around here every once in a while.
Mhm.
And when they happen, my wife inevitably says, "Go get the lawn furniture, the patio furniture, or whatever. Bring it close to the house or bring it inside the covered porch or whatever." And she's right to worry about that, because that stuff's out there and it's loose and it could go flying around. But I don't worry that my house is going to get like picked up and moved, because of a thunderstorm, right?
Right.
After there's a tornado, that's a different deal. But there's with your finances, the way that you run your firm is to say, listen, yes, there's money that's going to be moved and it's going to be more exposed to the volatility of the market. But there should be money that's just fixed.
Yes.
It's just there. And it's not as exciting, but it's just there and it's solid, and you can count on that. Literally, you can count on it. And so I think that's the other part of this. If you're listening, whether you're a client of David's, you're just listening because you're interested and you want to have a different advisor or better advice, is that the answer is never 100% here, 100% there. It's very likely a mix of growth and then guarantee.
Yes.
And guarantee happens when you sign contracts, right? But no one's guaranteeing anything in the market, and if they are, they're lying, right? That's the only rule about the market is you don't guarantee anything. You know what I mean? Or maybe you should guarantee that there's volatility. Maybe that's the only guarantee in the market, right? I want to ask you about the role of fear as believers, and also just as Americans who are part of the media cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the people who are your clients now, when they were kids, there were 3 channels and the news was on in the morning and at 5 o'clock and at 10 o'clock, and then you go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
And now our media landscape is there might be 30 24/7 media channels, right?
Yeah.
And probably 5 or 6 are, maybe more, are dedicated just to finance, right? And so, keeping that perpetual state, and they get you to watch by being afraid,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what's your advice to people who find themselves following finance closely enough that it starts to create fear?
Yeah, I think as a Christian, the Bible says that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of a sound mind. And that would be a good test, even for folks that are not Christians, is do I feel like I have a sound mind when I'm reacting to this? Is this logical? Does it make sense? And there's a lot of people on TV trying to convince you that things do sound, that they are sound. But the idea and the challenge is to be discerning. And what I have found is it is a lot easier to be discerning reading the news than watching the news. That emotional aspect, that when people talk and it's a lot easier to be manipulated, I think, when someone's talking to you than it is reading something. And so I always enjoy reading the news or prefer reading the news. If we have made accommodations for volatility and we've done the best that we can, the Bible also talks about how the righteous have never, he cares for them and their needs will be taken care of. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's important to understand that we don't have to live in that spirit of turmoil all the time, and that the sun will come up tomorrow, like we were talking about, I think, offline before we started this, or maybe we were talking about it on here, I can't remember. But that is important, just to have a long-term outlook and think what is going to stay the same in a year from now as today. And what is going to stay the same is the fact that we need to be invested, because we need to have our money growing most of the time to keep up with inflation and right. to be able to sustain our lifestyle.
Yeah. So I think also it's healthy to remind those who are listening or watching, again, whether you're a client of David's or not, but is to recognize that fear, in my opinion, is natural.
Yes.
Like it's natural, but it's not factual a lot of times, right? And so I think part of that is recognize that fear can be a tool of the enemy, and that fear can be a distraction, and that we are blessed as humans to actually think about our feelings. Like I'm sure that an ape gets angry, but I wonder if apes sit around and go, I guess I got really angry there. I don't think they do, yeah. Right? So they have emotions, but they're not able to really process their emotions. And I think we're able to go, wow, I'm afraid right now. Like, should I be afraid?
Yes.
Because I'm looking at my statement, or I'm looking at that whatever that I bought, and it guarantees me income. So like, why am I afraid right now? And I think a lot of people are afraid just because they're told to be afraid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, it's like that because it doesn't sell very much. It doesn't sell to go, hey, things are really good.
Right.
Right.
Right. The whole goal with how we help folks, and my goal as an advisor, is to help people not worry and to not have that fear factor that's so pervasive that you're describing.
So let's just say that someone's listening, watching, they're a client, maybe they're thinking about becoming a client, and they're like, David, I've done well, but man, I'm still afraid. Like I still worry, just probably more than I want to. If you were to meet with someone and look at their stuff, as you often do, stuff being all, it's like, hey, I got some annuities over here, and I got some money over here, and I got a 401k here. How much of your job, and we'll end with this, is for you to look at that and go, you know what, like, you're doing okay,
Yeah.
and I might change some things here, but how much of your job is sort of emotional management of like what they think or feel versus what your professional opinion is?
Yeah, the way that I try to inform that with logic is we just look at a calculator, and we can look at a calculator to determine like a conservative or a moderate rate of return. If it just does this on average, and you just take X amount of money, then you should have this amount of money at 80, 85, and so forth. And that tends to really help people when they can see the numbers and plugged into a calculator. But the idea, though, is how to execute on that. And if we don't know how we're going to take income away from that, or if we don't have a plan, it's not good enough, in my opinion, to just invest money and hope for the best. We want to have a plan for how we're going to take money out, how long it's projected to last, And so we want to optimize these things so that we can go into the situation with all the information beforehand, and not trying to gain that information on the backside or as we go. That is a recipe for just outcomes that we did not anticipate.
Yeah, I got this picture of someone working with you, and they sort of bring you all these seeds, and you go, listen, I will optimize these, and I think about how I might kind of grow stuff in my backyard versus a farmer who's growing thousands of acres. Like, they have a plan.
Yes.
I saw a story the other day about someone in California, and they're like, we planted these trees because we got a contract with a company for 20 years.
Wow.
So we planted these trees knowing that we're not going to get anything from them for 6 years, but we knew we had a 20-year contract. And it's like, it's that thought, and I think that because most people just make money week to week to week to week, they don't think like they don't think about the harvest. They just think about, I'm going to wake up today and water the plant and water the plant. And so that's why I want to encourage you, if you're listening, watching, if you're a current client and you just need to revisit with David, then do that. If you're not, I want to encourage you to reach out to David. His contact information will be in the show notes here, because oftentimes people are doing well, but they don't feel it. Or sometimes maybe they're not doing well, but they need someone who's going to bring some calm. And I think that's one of the gifts you bring your clients, David, is you bring a real sense of calm and professionalism, and hey, let's just make a plan.
Yeah.
And I think that's a real gift.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you. I've been told that calm thing before. To your point, though, or to bring it home, when our team meeting this morning, we were talking through some accounts of our clients that are up. It's their yearly time to check in on them and so forth. And there was nothing we could do for this one gentleman in his account. We were talking through it. And I said, there might not be anything we can do now, but there will be in the future. And we want to be long-term minded. And we want to be able to, when that guy calls up or we have a conversation with him, we can say, hey, we talked about this, and you're in the best possible situation you are with this. And so we certainly want to be long-term minded and think about that guy that's planting the shrub or whatever, the crop for 20 years out. We want to be thinking like that. We want to be long-term focused, because at the end of the day, it's not satisfactory to us to just have you as a client for a year or two. We're trying to have you for a client for the rest of our lifetimes, and so that's our goal.
Well, I appreciate that. And again, a reminder, this episode was really about the mindset of being a faithful steward of what we've been given to manage, and also understanding that it takes a village and it takes wisdom. And so I encourage you, if you have any doubt in your mind or you just want some reassurance, reach out to David. Again, his contact information will be in the show notes. And I know that he would be happy to talk with you about your plan and making sure that you've got a plan that is sufficient and is a good long-term solution. So David, as always, thanks for your wisdom.
Thank you, Andy. Take care.
Investment advisory services offered through Creative One Wealth, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Clients excel in Creative One Wealth or unaffiliated entities. We are not affiliated with or endorsed by any government agency and do not provide tax or legal advice. Investing involves risk, including the loss of principal. No investment strategy can guarantee a profit or protect against loss. Licensed insurance professional. Insurance and annuity products are backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. Investment advisory services are provided in accordance with a fiduciary duty of care and loyalty that includes putting your interests first and disclosing conflicts. Insurance services have a best interest standard, which requires recommendations to be in your best interest. Advisors may receive commission for the sale of insurance and annuity products.